go get inspiration. I think in order to do inspiring work, to be inspiring, to inspire others to come along with you on a journey, like you have to be inspired. And this is where the curiosity happens. Like go to unusual places, like whatever, drop out of college and move to Hawaii. There's a bunch of little things. I went to the school for innovators along the way. And one of the things was like that one of the mottos was sweat a little every day, meaning like you're curious and you try something that makes you a little nervous. And like go to a restaurant and ignore the menu and just say like, bring me whatever the chef thinks is great.
Welcome to Vibecast, the podcast that dives deep into the heartbeat of workplace culture. I'm your host, Kristi Skutvik. Join me in conversations with extraordinary leaders as we unravel their experiences, both positive and negative, that have impacted workplace culture. This podcast is more than storytelling. It's about actionable insights. Are you ready to transform the vibe at your workplace? Let's go. Today's guest is Katherine von Jan, or KVJ, as many of you may know her. She is the co-founder of Tough Day and one of the people shaping how we think about the future of work. She's been deep in the world of emerging tech and AI, but always with a very human lens, focused on how work actually feels day to day. Before Tough Day, she led Salesforce Innovation as Chief Strategy Officer. And her voice on the future of work has shown up everywhere from CNBC and Forbes to the Wall Street Journal and Wired. This is one of those conversations that will make you rethink the intersection of tech and people and how to leverage AI as a tool for the better of your organization and your leaders. So KVJ is what you go by, right? Has that always been what you've gone by? There's probably a story behind that, but I just appreciate you being here. Love to hear the story at some point during our conversation.
Absolutely. I am very happy to share that. Thank you. I'm super happy to be here with you too.
So as I get started in all my conversations, I think it's important just to be grounded in the lens by which you see like what a vibe means in the workplace and how you would define it. So I'd love to hear what you think of it and how you define it and what it means to you.
Yeah, I think it's hard to define, but it is a shared experience. And I think it's a deep feeling of chemistry or connection, energy, synchronicity, like something that really moves you. And I would say like those are good vibes, right? Like when you feel connected and on a deep, deep level. And then, there's the opposite. There's like the bad vibes, which I think is like, I don't know if it's even helpful, but sometimes it's just like you're not feeling the vibe. Like maybe everybody else is vibing and it's just not your vibe, and that's okay. And, sometimes no one's feeling the vibe and you can all actually like
connect on that. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point too. Is like, and I'll be the first to tell people in my consulting business, and I'm sure you've experienced this too. I'm like, I'm not for everyone. Like, and that's okay, right? There's a piece of the pie to go around for everybody, but maybe I'm not their person, or I'm not the right match for the thing that they need or the consulting that they need. And I think you're right. Like, just because you're not a match for the vibe doesn't mean it's off. Sometimes it does, but not always. It just means maybe that's not the right energy for you and there's somewhere else that is for you. So that's a great point. Great point. So I'd love to hear kind of your journey, right? And not what your resume says, but just kind of your journey in the workplace of how you got started, any defining moments or experiences that you had that helped you understand that building a vibe and a culture and leading people was for you and something that you wanted to do and continue to impact people that way. So I'd love to just hear, where you started and kind of take us through where you're going.
Yeah, well, I guess it's funny. I wasn't planning to talk about this, but my very first job, like probably informed some of this, which was as a lifeguard in a inner city pool. And it was kind of a bit of a rocky road to get there. So I had gotten my lifeguarding certification, and then I went through, you had to have WSI, which is like, you can teach swimming and stuff like that. And I had passed that with flying colors, and um except that the person teaching it would not pass me. She said I was too immature. And like I aced the written, like, yeah, and it was like literally everything I did well, and but it was listed as like, I don't know, immature or just some, I was like, that lady just doesn't like me. And then it turns out I was applying, so lo and behold, I took it again with a different teacher in a different city, and I passed it. And then I went to apply for this lifeguarding job in our city. And it turns out that the teacher I had was the hiring manager. And she couldn't, I don't know, like she couldn't not, I guess she couldn't not hire me. So like I got hired, and I had requested of all the city pools, like all the ones, all the nice ones. And I hate to say it that way, but it was like, the cushy ones. And I got placed in like the hardcore, like really dangerous pool. And there were like 7 football player style lifeguards, like 6'5", like giant muscles. And I got placed in that pool, and I'm pretty sure she thought I would just like quit. And I was like, I am not going to quit. I am totally gonna like be a badass life. And yeah, and so and this, just to paint a picture, like we had policemen stationed at the bottom of our chairs, because like people would show up with chains and like weapons, and it was kind of a crazy situation. And like when I would jump in the pool to save someone, like very often someone came after me, and like so I had to be like really strong. You had to anticipate things happening, like, and the police were there. It was kind of crazy that I don't even know why they couldn't keep it safe. Yeah, I don't know. Like like the point is it was, and then like the entire vibe, if you will, for me was like strength. Like I am going to come in and I am going to prove I can do this and be as strong as those dudes, and make this work. And I did. And so I don't know, like for me, like being a lifeguard and being in difficult situations and managing through it and managing and like bringing other people along and what have you, that's been sort of who I've been from the beginning. And I can go to much less. I would say the other defining moment came not that long after that, which kind of builds on the story. I dropped out so I went off from, that was in high school, and then I went off to college. I dropped out of college. It was not like I was not in the right program or the right school, and everything I thought it would be, it was not. And I dropped out and I
Which I
moved
think
home.
is a very common thread for many people. They just don't have the courage to say it.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I just you know, I always thought I would be an artist, like strangely. Like I was raised as an artist. I was raised in the woods. I in New Hampshire. I loved painting, you name it. I was, very artsy kid, and I thought I would go to art school, and my parents were like, "You're not going." I'm like, "Smart kids don't go to art school." Yes, they do, by the way. Like that is wrong information. But but they were not supportive, so I went to school for advertising, or communications, thinking, well, that'll be creative and fun. And then I was like, that's it might be fun, but it was soulless for me. And this is where like the second, so so when I dropped out, not knowing what I wanted to do or who I was like, oh, maybe I can go be a lifeguard in Hawaii. At the time they didn't have lifeguards in Hawaii. So I arrive in Hawaii, I end up working in retail and becoming a cocktail waitress and all of that. But the important thing was, I think I was looking for culture and a sense of purpose and values that I aligned with and some sort of soul in my work. And like I didn't feel that a career in advertising would be soulful for me. And when I was in Hawaii and I was really connected to the local culture um and seeing the world through the lens of lots of different travelers from all over the world. We were dealing with yen and like I loved the global nature of living there and feeling connected to the world, and I felt inspired to go be part of it. Like, I was like, "I don't wanna be the one serving the people at the table, I want a seat at the table, and I wanna go solve big world problems." Like, those 2 things, like, being a lifeguard and trying to, like, uh, save I don't know, like, make things better, like, save people and then do it with other people in the right context and culture. I think that's a sense of purpose and a personal platform and doing it with people and for people that you love.
Yeah. Well, and it's really important. There's two things. One, it's so interesting because Hawaii can be so isolating to some people in their mind, right? Like you're in this isolated place, it's pretty small, no matter what island you're on, and you're kind of far away from the mainland and everything else. But I love the lens that you saw it through is like, no, I have an opportunity to touch the globe because so many people are coming here to experience Hawaii that I get to participate in like this global adventure versus I'm isolated here on my own little island. So that what a cool perspective to look at that. I think that probably gives a glimpse into how you see things too, just your perspective on the workplace and life and the way you impact people. So very cool. And then I had a second piece to that, and now it's escaped me. It's okay. Keep talking.
Well, I feel like there was another part of the question that I can't remember. No, I'm just thinking like the personal path to get there, but
So as you were like in Hawaii, experiencing Hawaii, knowing that you had this, oh, this was the second part, my thought is like this realization of like the personal mission that you were out to do, what you were out to do, right? Which is super duper important. I try to kind of bestow that upon my kids too, of like know who you are and know what you're about, because you can easily get caught in the trap of what people think you should be or where you should go, like shitting yourself to death. And so that it seemed like pretty early on in your career, you understood what like your purpose was. Maybe not like where you were going to go work, but like what you were up to and what you wanted to be about. So, how did that, yeah, like how did you get there? And then what did you go do about it?
well, I think um one, the experience in Hawaii informed a lot of that from a values perspective and like the matrifocal culture that exists. So matrifocal meaning men and women share power. And I was really fascinated by that kind of culture. And I went back to school. I ended up studying international affairs and business. And it was kind of, like I thought I might want to be a diplomat or something like that. And and then I graduated and I went back to school for matrifocal culture. It was essentially like an anthropology degree, and my area of study was matrifocal culture, which was a combination of anthropology, religion, women's studies. Like, I wanted to study women in leadership and how it's evolving. And so I was getting this master's, and my advisor said, the only way you can really like first of all, like there's nothing written about this yet. Like this was like early 90s. Um, Nothing is written about this yet. You're kind of inventing it by taking all these different classes and weaving it together. Like maybe you should just go into the tribe and go study it live like an anthropologist would. And I was like, ooh, that's exciting. So I looked for the best places for women to work. Lotus Development, if you remember, I don't know if you remember what the
Lotus Notes. I do remember. Yeah.
exactly. So it was an exciting time because the internet was brand new and we're trying to figure out what to do with that in the world and especially in business and in culture. But I didn't know I was going to go into tech at all, but Lotus was listed as the best place for women to work. So I'm like, aha, that's where I need to go to study women at work. And I navigated my way to even before social media, before that, I managed to meet the CHRO of Lotus. I explained what I wanted to do, and he was like, I'm going to help you find a role here. And, um, and then, so it's all like synchronicity, right? Like, he, so Irene Greif, who is the mother of collaborative technology, first woman to get a PhD from MIT in computer science, happened to be leading this lab within Lotus, working on collaborative tech. And her assistant was going on her maternity leave and she needed a fill-in assistant. So he's like, this seems like the perfect group for you. It's a research lab studying the tribe at work and how to use technology for knowledge management, which at the time I was like, I don't think anyone knew what that was. Um, and so it was like a bunch of Pixar artists and like it was creative and super thoughtful and insightful and just I loved it. So I took that job, got very, very engaged and it changed my life. It was like here, now I know why I'm here. Like I can work on culture inside of organizations and help them leverage technology to do better, like help make it all better, like do business better, but also solve great problems and all of those things. So that
So when you were inside there was because sometimes you read about a company and then you work inside and you're like, something's off here. What people are saying and how it feels is incongruent. So what's up? So how was
this
that
was
there?
real. Like, and it's so I wish I kind of wish everyone could start their career in such a magical place. Like, so first of all, Mitch Kapoor had a sort of Buddhist approach to culture at the time. And I would call it like a culture of collectivism anyway. And and everything about the culture lived up to the promise. So number one, the building was round, and in the middle of the building was childcare. So everyone would bring their kids to work and put them in this childcare, and they'd be riding these crazy bikes, and that were all designed by I don't know, like really creative people. Did all funny. And then, like when you went to lunch or anything, you'd pass by and see them through the window. But also, they would have parades through the halls, and they'd be banging their pots and pans. So, like every once in a while, you'd have something kind of creative happening. And like, I didn't have kids at the time, but I appreciated like that parents got to see their kids and it felt like a family. I will say that. I also, so there were things like that, but the women, um, for everyone supported each other. Like, I don't, but I was studying women while I was doing all my jobs. So, um, but what I found so special was even though I was young and I didn't have a lot of experience, I got a lot of responsibility. I got a lot of visibility. I got like invited to things that probably in most organizations like the junior person doesn't get invited to, and I just thought all of that was normal. It was and I'll give you an example. Like I remember being invited to this offsite and very diverse group, and we were in a working group and one of the senior female leaders uh we were presenting out and one of the female leaders said, why don't you present? And I was like, well, like you're the boss here. I think you should present. She was like, Katherine, everyone here knows me. This is an opportunity. Like, you should get up so people can get to know you. And I feel like that advocacy was just normal in every instance. Like there were people, I remember another woman, like senior, said, "Hey, are you doing anything? Like, can you get out of the office on Friday? I'd like to take you on a business trip with me. We're going to fly to New York and meet with some customers." And, like at the time I was not career facing or partner facing. So like, and she talked to my boss and got, paid for my way and for me to go have that experience. And I will say one other thing, sorry, like about that and coming back to your question about purpose. I was sent to a women in leadership training that one of the big questions was, what are you going to do before you take the big dirt nap? And we had to explore, like, what are our values and what's our purpose and why are we here? And yeah, yeah, she called it the big dirt nap. And yeah, I use it to this day. And I think I was just very fortunate to be in an environment where people actually talked about purpose and like, what are you here to do? And if it's not here in this role or in this company, like, how can I help you get there? Um, and if you want it to be here, here's all the opportunity and resources available to you.
Yeah. That is really, really cool. And I agree with you. I don't think people are exposed to it early enough, or they just chalk it up to like, well, I'm not really supposed to be happy at work, or I'm not really supposed to, I'm just like, I'm just, I got to do it to pay my bills and that's it. And it's
No, that's not true. Yeah.
like the, yeah, that's horrible. And you're probably doing a horrible job and wondering why it always feels like you're swimming upstream, because it's probably just a bad match for like what your passions are. And I'm not saying quit your job and go follow your passions, but integrate it to the point that you can so you can find joy.
Well, absolutely. And I think, you know, the thing is, I feel like looking backwards, you can see all the connections, but when you're in it, you don't know where you're going. You just kind of have to trust your gut. And I always found like the best kind of gauge for me was like, my intuition, is this something I'm naturally curious about and I'm interested in? Can I learn and grow from it? Do I believe in the purpose and the mission of the team? And do I like the other people on the team? Right. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Cause you have to see them a lot, right? And interact with them a lot, probably at some points in life more than your family, even. So you're like, I don't want to spend time with people that are just mean or I don't connect with, or we have, yeah, it's just, yeah, not my people. And that's okay, right? Like, I don't think there's any shame in that and recognizing that and then doing something about it, because there is a ton of opportunity for people to do amazing and different things. And so it doesn't mean just because I actually have a friend who was a CPA, and she's like, I should have never been a CPA. I don't know why I ever did that. I think my parents wanted me to do it. And so I just did it. And like 2 years in, I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is not for me. What am I doing? But some people spend 20 years, 30 years doing something that are like, what am I doing?
I know a lot of
Mm.
recovering lawyers.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah, I mean,
gosh.
I do think like there's a lot, um, guidance counselors have too many, like I think on average they have like 350 students per guidance counselor in the country. Right? So we're not getting the right guidance when we're making decisions about what to study or what to do, right? We're following some kind of script anyway. And then, I do think a lot of kids drop out of college because they get there and it's not their, but do they have the support, or it's kind of the wherewithal to figure out, well, what's the pivot I'm looking to? I hear that the stats for like for transferring to other colleges are really going up. And I think that's great. It means like, not just like going, okay, I'm in and now I'm going to coast to the next phase in 4 years from now, like constantly be thinking about and designing your life and your career and your opportunities.
And I'll tell my kids this, or anybody that I interact with, you can also, just because you start somewhere doesn't mean you have to end there, right? So like me and my kids talked about this because they've switched schools a few times. It's like, let's just go try it out. And if it's not for you, then like, let's have a discussion about it and why and dig into it. Don't just like quit, so to speak. But there's so like, it's not forever. You're not committed for life. Like, this isn't a marriage. This is like, let's test it out and let's see, right?
Well, I think it's interesting, like, for me, and as I was thinking about, my career path and related to vibes, like, every single role in every single company that I've ever taken had a purpose I believed in, an opportunity. The role itself was an opportunity to grow and achieve something that I was personally interested in, and had a team that I was inspired by and, like, wanted to be around. And, those are not always easy things to see when you're interviewing or figuring things out, but I think it's a kind of an easy litmus test for, like, is this an opportunity worth trying, right? And then if you don't like it, you can always change your mind and go.
Totally. Yeah, totally, totally. Um, and I know when you and I first connected, there was also an experience that you had that was contributed to bad vibes. And so
I
um,
have a long
yeah, people can remain nameless, and companies don't have to be shared. But I just think that it's just as important as it is to say, like, oh, it's all good and do this and do that. It's really important to have self awareness to know when, um, and because we all do this too, we all have bad days too that can contribute to maybe an impact on somebody that was unintentional. But I do think sometimes there are people who just ruin the energy and the vibe of a workplace over very simple things. So if you would be open to sharing kind of one of those pivotal moments for you, I think that it's important because it kind of plays into what you do today and logos and all of that. So it's had a long-term impact on you.
well, I mean, it's one of those things that I reflect on as a moment that was weird. And, I mean, I'll just say I had a boss who was kind of like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Um, and I could see like which person I was going to get just by like on like the body language. Um, and so, this person actually was in many ways amazing. But then, well, also was not. And, so, I took the good and tried to help make the things that weren't working better. But I remember it was on my birthday that we had an offsite, and the day before he came to me and just said, like, just to let you know, I'm not mentioning your birthday tomorrow. I don't want to, give you any attention and take away from our event, which just meant it was so awkward. It was like, I don't even care about my birthday, but now that you mention it like that, like, this is crazy. Like, and like all the effort to think about, like, I don't even know, like, saying something to me about it, I guess might have been in his mind generous to like let me know he's not gonna say anything. But he didn't even say like, I want to say happy birthday now because like tomorrow I won't be. It wasn't even like I was just like, yeah, we're not doing your birthday this year. And I'm like,
So
okay.
wild. You're at an offsite on your birthday, which some people celebrate, some people don't care, right? But to like the energy it took to think about and then go tell you versus the energy it would have taken to say, hey, your birthday's tomorrow, happy birthday, in case like we're too, like something comes up and we're busy and I forget, right? Could have been as simple as that, done at that. But this is probably what, 20 years ago? Maybe, maybe not quite.
Let's
Anyways, it was a long time ago and it still has a forward impact on you, right? And you still remember it. It's like one of those impressionable moments where you're like, this could have been so easy. And yet the small comment made it so hard and so terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the small things really do matter. And I mean, there's some other, I can share a couple other stories, other leaders, because why not? I mean, I had another boss that, similar, like, actually, she really, she really loved me. I really loved her. Really brilliant woman, and I felt very cared for personally. But I mean, she was tough and also very could be just mean, right, to some people, not to me. And I felt like my role was sometimes protecting the team, and it was like very hard to navigate. Now, on one hand, some of the like I learned so much from her because she was so specific about so many things. But I'll remember like the guidance that she gave me. So I had a team, very high performing team, doing great work. And then like one day she sat me down and she was like, "Can you imagine what performance you'd get out of them if you just started yelling at them? Like they would work so much harder." And I was like, "Are you serious?" Like, I am not gonna yell at them. But it was like literally one of her then it like clicked as like, "Oh, this like being mean like is actually a tactic she thinks works to get people to do good work." And we did great work despite that. And and there were lots of good and fun and awesome things about her. And I think no one ever pushed me to be more creative than she did. But it was just an interesting insight, right? Like so it did not create a good vibe, and, I left, well,
Well,
didn't
it's interesting kind of going back to the lens by which you saw your time in Hawaii, right? That's how, like, the lens that she saw good, maybe leadership or driving for performance or whatever it was in her experience that she brought with her, she thought that was a tactic.
like, fear I think that there are leaders who think fear and aggression is, like, the tactic, um
Maybe some of those recovering lawyers that you know. They may have, experienced that, not saying that
most
they
of
were
them that I
like
know are
that.
very sweet, but
No, but maybe they experienced that, and so they were like, "Oof, I don't wanna be that, and if that I have to do that to get there, oof," because
yeah,
that's
I do think there's a bit of that, like, and I think also the more kind of depending on the size of the organization and the more senior you get, like there I had another boss that I actually found this very helpful, but at one point I was going to present to an executive in the company and he said, right before we went in, like, and I'd been prepping for I don't know, weeks for this meeting. And before we went in, he said, you know, I just want to give you one tip. When we go in, you're going to have to cut this guy up, forget everything you know about being nice. You're going to have to own the conversation when he's going to try to interrupt you and you have to interrupt him right back. And you're going to like hammer him with all your knowledge and don't let him talk. And I was like, oh, okay, and, like, it was, like, real time in the moment coaching. It actually worked out really well because actually I love to banter and have discourse and argue and discuss and all of those things. So, like, culturally for me, that was like, "Oh, fantastic. I love this." Uh, and and I think so many people kind of feel like you have to be on your best behavior around some of these folks, and actually you just, like, lose their respect. So
totally, totally. Yeah. Well, it's, like, honest and kind, right? Like, he wasn't telling you anything that was untrue, and he was saying, if you wanna go out there and you wanna do your best, this is what you're gonna be up against.
yeah, exactly. It was really good, really relevant coaching in the moment, and I appreciate that. And it, made the vibe more interesting and fun for me too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so you've had a journey to where you are today and the impact that you're having on organizations today. So let's talk a little bit about what you are doing today and like how that came to be, like what sparked the idea and then the impact it's having on organizations.
Yeah. So I think first, obviously, a woman in tech over the last 30 years, like I've seen a lot of things. We've talked about some of them today. There's like so many more. Good, bad, ugly. And and I've been working on this problem of unlocking human potential from the beginning of my career at Lotus, and using emerging tech to do that. It was the internet, and then it was mobile, and then social, and I've been in AI since 2012, like trying to figure out how to use these technologies in a human positive way to improve our our agency, really, our abilities, our capabilities, our agency, and our outcomes, and doing that together. So, um, I would say there are a few defining moments. I recognized, even when I was at Salesforce before starting Tough Day, I was working on employee experience. I led innovation internally and externally, and our chief people officer was a stakeholder in that. And so when there were challenges, and as a strategist, and as a chief strategy officer, so when there's a challenge with strategy and execution, I always go back to culture. And why are people not happy? Why are they not performing? What's holding them back? And so this has just been my life's work at this point. And what I noticed was when you can get to the core of the issue, you can solve it. So we've got to ask a lot more questions. So there I had amazing data from across the company, whether it was surveys or like our goals, and the what was called the V2 mom. You could look at like what people actually work on, how are they doing, lots of great data, and then could also go in and interview people confidentially and one-on-one and understand what's happening. So when you do that ethnographic work and use data and understand the problems, then you have a chance at solving it. And one of the big insights for me has been across all of these that your leader or your manager has such an outsized impact on your happiness and performance inside the organization. When ChatGPT was born, I was like, what would be interesting is to train an AI to have all the capabilities of the world's best manager, all of the management expertise, the HR expertise, organizational expertise, and really even like unwritten rules and culture and things like that. And maybe an AI could um, support people, care for people, and provide the capabilities, the confidence, competence, and agency that people need better than the average manager. Humans have bad days, good days, various levels of knowledge. Like maybe this is a way to really truly support people, and so that's what we set off to build, and we've built it.
It's amazing. It's so great. And what are some of the things that you're hearing, like, from the people who are using it now, right? Because this is like, I think good and bad leaders have been around forever. I think the kimono was opened, if you will, in my opinion, to some degree when the pandemic hit, because people were dispersed immediately and leaders had to really truly have leadership conversations remotely, and they didn't know how. And that was like the touch point of the culture of your organization, because the touch point on the daily was your leader. That was pretty much it, right? When everyone was used to being in an office, no longer. It was like communicating via whatever tools you had, and over the phone and over Zoom. And if you were not a great leader, somehow you could kind of keep it together sometimes in the office, because you could see the person. But when you're not, and you're only communicating via these other tools, I think it was just the value of a good leader became stronger, if that makes sense, right? Like, and the gap between good and bad was just like, whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the manager is the front line, like is the interface to the whole organization. And so whatever that relationship is like is kind of, that's the cornerstone of your relationship with the company, regardless of the mission and the culture and what you can be working for a company that is doing amazing work and has an incredible culture, but if that is not your manager and your experience on that team, then like it's going to fall apart. And yeah, I do want to say I think the role is changing, the expectations are changing, and if you look at the history of management and where it came from, like the original role, the first managers were actually hired by pharaohs to manage slaves. And the job, yeah, I actually did the research on this. Like,
Wow, I love this. I love the history lesson. Tell me more.
so, yeah, and the job was communication, like get this done and consequence, and really for 3,000 years it didn't change, and in the early 1900s, new management kind of philosophy came about, and then we had some decision making power. Managers were given a little bit of autonomy to decide how things were going to be done, and then Peter Drucker came along and, started from, let's say, the 60s through the 90s. All of a sudden it was like the humans matter, like people are humans and they have human needs and we have to take care of them. So over about 70 years, we really changed what the expectations were for managers. Meantime, organizations look at managers as kind of it's a reporting structure problem, and we need usually there's a ratio like 7 to 1 or 10 to 1 or whatever it is, and that's just how we organize, and that's pretty structured. And yet there's so much more expected of us, and I think there's the invisible work that managers have to do. It's not just fill out the performance review or set the goals or, weekly check-ins. Like managers spend 25% of their time managing conflict. Like that research is out there. And if you think about that, like that's 60 days a year that they are spent like just trying to not like help
1 week
people.
a month.
Right? So managers are more disengaged than ever. They're struggling, and can't get their best work done. So I don't think it's not that managers necessarily need to go away. I think we can have broader span of control. So you can have far more people working for someone who is operationally responsible, and I think the AI can support the emotional and behavioral needs and the clarity and kind of coaching along the way to support people so that people can go have the conversations they need to have to like de-escalate, to resolve issues on their own. And I think we'll see professional mentors, like human mentors, become more and more relevant in organizations.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is like real-time micro learning, right? Is essentially what it is to some degree through Tough Day is it's like, I need this and I need this now. I'm not going to go look through the book of the training that I went to 3 months ago in order to like diagnose and understand. Because one, I don't have time for it. And two, like, how am I going to discern what I need from it and what I don't? Because it was like a whole framework and a process, and there was lots of conversation around it. And it becomes this overwhelming thought process. And they're like, well, I'm probably just going to do nothing.
Or they go there, like I think there's do nothing, there's wing it, and then and then there's like the long arduous task of figuring out like taking the class again and figure in and um like in terms of learning, we know that people forget 90%. There's something called the forgetting curve. So people will forget 90% of what they learn in a course within 30 days.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, and if they don't apply it. Right? So the idea is like if you can get the information that you need at the right time and the right size, if you will, so you can activate it, you're more likely to learn it and really internalize it. And so, a smarter way to learn is to get that like micro learning, micro coaching in that moment, in a safe way. And I think this is the other piece is like when people struggle, if they don't ignore it and they don't wing it, then often they go to the wrong person and get the wrong advice or it just takes too long and the problems fester and then they get harder and all of that. And so providing an AI that's always on and always with you means you can safely turn to that without fear of retribution, without fear of being considered stupid or not knowing. Like you can come in and just say it the way you want to say it, ask it the way you want to ask it, and not worry about all that other um, kind of mental load, if you will.
Yeah. I have an interesting story about that. And I may have shared this with you the first time we spoke, but I was in a room full of leaders and we were doing a workshop. And one of the leaders, it was kind of like halfway through the day. And we were talking about this whole idea of like, what do we need to do as leaders to improve the vibe of the organization? Like these small things, right? And we were giving examples and we were talking through it. And this one leader kind of leans back and he's like, I just got to tell you, I'm like really embarrassed. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because I should have thought about this. And it was like the simple things, but he likely didn't ask the questions or maybe didn't like bounce the idea because he thought it was too simple and didn't want to sound like he was, oversimplifying something or not smart or all those things that you just said, right? But many times it's really taking it back to the basics of leadership and and just like the human in front of you. Like forget like the corporate infrastructure and the leadership class and whatever. It's like the human in front of you, how to use those like basic human skills to have a conversation or to say something very clearly or to cut through like the confusion, right? Or be courageous or give them feedback, like the simple things.
Well, it's funny. We hear one of the things that we hear about our platform and from leaders is that um, because their organizations are using Tough Day, and we call the AI Toughie, so their people are talking with Toughie. They say like they show up better prepared and they're more clear on what they need. So they've solved a lot of it. They can come in with an agenda, or they'll send emails that are really like really clear. This is what I need, and can we have this conversation? And that is a much better springboard for the manager who's context switching and dealing with a million fires. So it's like if you can show up with your leader, manager, or other colleagues, and you're prepared and you're calm, you're self-regulated, you know what your challenges are and you know what your ask is, boy, that conversation is going to be a lot easier to have. And then, and this one leader was saying like, she used to avoid her team, because she didn't want to get stuck in like people would be waiting outside the door. And she was like, I don't want to open the door. Cause like, and it's awful, but it's just like, how it goes. Like someone will say, do you have 5 minutes for a quick chat? And it turns into 2 hours. And so, what's amazing is she said, suddenly, like now that people are showing up so prepared and the working relationship is so much improved. Actually, she wants to spend time with them because like now they can have a human relationship and have fun together and have a coffee, and it's really a coffee and it's not like disguised as something else. So it's improved that the vibes, if you will.
That like human connection because it takes out, yeah, they can get some of their stuff figured out and answered and then go have a coffee, like you said.
Exactly. Exactly. And laugh together and have fun together and stuff like
Yeah. Yeah. And it probably, and I don't even know how you would measure this, right? And some things just can't be measured, but I have to imagine that when people start feeling the impact of like getting their questions answered and being able to be open and ask the questions that are on their mind, and then they walk into a meeting feeling very prepared or with some of these like baseline things answered for them already, I have to imagine it's building the confidence of the human, right? And so therefore they become more productive. Like I saw this, I mean, just think of your kids, right? When they're like little and they don't know how to read yet, or they may be struggling in a subject, and then all of a sudden something clicks. And then it's like their confidence like compounds in a miraculous way. And then all of a sudden they're doing better in sports, or they're making, their friendships go deeper, or like, and all these areas of their life kind of open up very positively. I have to imagine that's happening inside organizations too.
Yeah, and it is hard to measure all of the impact. I think so. Usually, there's things that we can measure in our platform, and then there's things that organizations can measure in their data, and then there's qualitative kind of research around that. But um, often our customers will do like a before we launch kind of, either they've just done an employee survey or they'll do a specific survey and they're looking for certain metrics like um, culture feedback, culture, all the cultural things in general, but coaching, feeling supported, feeling trusted. Like they're looking at, can we correlate some of that data with, or those improvements with people who are using Tough Day.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really, really cool. It's using AI to like serve its purpose and also kind of like illuminate and encourage human connection, which I love.
That is the goal. Yes. We're not trying to, we want uh people to be empowered, to be superpowered, to have better relationships. I mean, we have this scale, we call it our scale model, but essentially maps to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and helping each individual get what they need at each kind of level, from well-being and self-regulation and kind of their own their their own understanding of the organization. That clarity is safety, is psychological safety, and then like moving up to culture and collaboration and all those working relationships and caring for one another, and then like A is achievement and all of the performance and goals, and like being clear on what you want to achieve and helping you achieve that, or knowing how to go get the help that you need from the right people in the organization, and the learning, and then finally exploration, and like feeling that you have agency to go innovate and solve great problems in your organization.
Because
So
sometimes these tiny little things take up 80% of your brain space that don't allow you to go be creative, right? And go do your best work.
exactly, it's impossible to be creative if you're like stuck in the like conflict and confusion, and I don't understand the changes coming. I will say what you mentioned before about like purpose. Like we're seeing a lot of organizations aligning Tuffy with the direction of the company. So if there's a big change, even like all hands calls and transcripts and like the CEO or founder's message kind of being part of Tuffy's brain. So if your manager doesn't understand the change that's happening, you can just like Tuffy understands what the CEO is trying to achieve here. So
Yeah. Which is also really safe too, right? If you inform Tuffy with all that information and then this person feels safe asking the question because it's really like, you know, behind the keyboard and it's to the degree that it can be confidential and they can ask it in their own way without sounding quote unquote stupid in front of people, right? If that's how they feel. I'm just making an assumption
it's
here.
totally confidential.
And then they can get like, and then they can keep asking it and it can like deduce the information down in a way that's understandable to them.
Yeah. And a manager, and we have a lot of managers who use it, and like they can get the clarity, they can practice, they can make sure that they're clear, like that, so at every level of the organization, it is helpful. And if it takes someone 2 hours to work through it, and they're doing that with the AI, they're not taking up somebody else's time for 2 hours trying to make sense out of it. So
That might not even work. The 2 hours might not even make sense of it, right? Because they're going to put it through their own interpretive lens also.
Yeah, and if they're frustrated or are having a bad day or like what, you don't know what you're gonna get. So,
Yeah, you kind of get the unemotional version, right? Because everyone puts their emotion on top of it. So that's awesome. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Um, okay, so if we had to kind of tie it all in a bow and, people listening could say, okay, that was a whole lot of information. Like, I want to move to Hawaii and I want to have that experience, or I want to, I want to create an AI product, or I want to do this, I wanted that. But I know, like, simplistically, there's one thing you would recommend or suggest one thing people walk away from after listening to this and say, go do this next, to just turn that corner and move that needle to impacting themselves, their team, their organization, their community, whatever it is that they're leading. Even like I said, even if it's just leading themselves or their family, what's that one next thing they should go do and go try in order to kind of pivot?
I mean, I always come back to curiosity. And that's not very concrete, but I think uh asking asking really well, two things are embedded into curiosity. One is like go get inspiration. I think in order to do inspiring work, to be inspiring, to inspire others to come along with you on a journey, like you have to be inspired. So, you know, go to unusual place. And this is where the curiosity happens. Like go to unusual places, like whatever, drop out of college and move to Hawaii and see what, like, but, there's a bunch of little things. I went to the school for innovators along the way, and one of the things was like the one of the mottos was sweat a little every day, meaning like you're curious and you try something that makes you a little nervous, and like go to a restaurant and ignore the menu and just say like bring me whatever the chef thinks is great, right? Like that invites risk taking, curiosity. It's a platform for somebody else to be creative. Like,
Right.
right. So,
Sweat a little bit every day. That's a great line.
well, you can thank Rolf Smith for that.
Yeah, because it's true. Make yourself like nothing good comes from comfort zones, right? Like there's
Right. Get a little uncomfortable, be curious and see what happens. And I think like a lot of us, it's easier to just stay, even the pain that maybe you think like, the devil is better than what's ever on the other side. But actually, there's so many little things that we can do every day to make things better, to make our work lives better. Whether that's with AI or it's just, showing up differently at work, like just try something you've not done before and see what happens. Like, get in the habit of trying that every day.
right, right. Yeah, and it'll build that muscle and that habit of being curious and being okay with being uncomfortable. And then like bigger and broader things come from that. That's amazing. Sweat a little bit every day.
And I will say, like, for anyone out there that is like not sure about AI and everyone says you can code and you can make anything with AI, like it's really easy. Like, like I would say like the problem with most people getting started creating something with AI is having the idea and knowing what problem in my life do I want to solve, and then, is that something that I can ask AI to create an app for me for or something? Like I'm like a lot of I will say I don't want to diminish like at all how much work people and organizations, companies go through to create really great products. It's not easy to just say, "Hey, Claude, make me, whatever the equivalent of Tough Day would be." Like there's a lot more to it. I think you're not going to go to Claude and say, "Build me Harvey." I don't know. Like, but I do think, if there's one little work stream or something in your life that you can make a little easier, like go tell me the recipe of the day, whatever. Like go get something for
Build me
me.
a grocery list.
Yeah, I mean, I created an app that would allow me to talk with Slack and know what we know as an organization. So like I I love Slack, so I want to be careful here, but like better than the Slack bot, like I am asking questions of what we as an organization, because the whole knowledge, like the organization's knowledge is in there. So
Yeah. Yeah, but it all goes back to your ability to be uncomfortable and be curious, right? Like, if you take it all the way back to your lifeguard days, I mean, that's what it really comes down to is, like, sweat a little bit every day, and you're comfortable doing that because 'cause you've done it for so long and it's natural to who you are, but at some point, it wasn't natural to you, but you tried it, and then you tried it a little more, and then you tried it a little more, and then here it is, like, woven into the fabric of who you are, and that's what's taken you to where you're at, right? So that's like, amazing. Sweat a little bit every day.
if you try,
Love
you'll
it.
figure out it actually does work.
Right. Totally. Yeah. 100%. Well, thank you so much. We didn't even get to that how you became KVJ, but we'll save that for another day. As another day, we will definitely discuss that. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your insight, your wisdom, your passion for what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristi. It was a lot of fun.
This conversation with KVJ is a really good reminder that work isn't just about the job you have. It's about how it feels to be in the room, who's around you, and whether you're in a place that actually lets you grow. Hearing her story from being a lifeguard to leading in tech shows how much our environments shape us and how important it is to have people who see your potential before you fully see it yourself. I love how we talked about how curiosity and purpose can guide big career moves, how supportive teams change what you think is possible for yourself, and how even small choices as a manager, a check-in, a moment of clarity, a bit of encouragement, can stick with someone longer than you realize. We also touched on AI and how tools can help with clarity and communication, but can't replace the human side of leadership. If there's one takeaway, it's this. You're allowed to want better for yourself at work. You're allowed to outgrow places, and you're allowed to choose environments that help you stretch, learn, and feel supported along the way. So stay curious, stay courageous, and keep vibing, my friends. If this episode inspired you and you want to see how you can take the next step to creating a better vibe within your organization, I'd love for you to download our complimentary 75 Vibes worksheet. This is a simple tool to create a habit and mindset around creating great vibes in work and life. The best part, it's simple and it works.